A group of students built a whole AI application that helped the Boy Scouts with their marketing and helped integrate the CRM marketing tools. They did a really great AI application that the Boy Scouts are now using. So last term, 95% of the students who graduated without student debt.
Welcome to the very first episode of the Supercharged newsletter. I'm super excited that we're starting this journey together and I cannot wait to see what this is going to bring. So this podcast started with the need for deep, meaningful conversations on AI, the future of humanity, and the evolution of humanity. We wanted to have these conversations that are so important, not just with experts, but because AI is shaping our life and is going to shape our future, and we are part of it. If the more we know and the more we are able to understand and anticipate the future, the better it will be for us to be prepared and do the right thing, make the right decisions for the future and the future generations. And for this first episode, I couldn't have picked a more mind-blowing guest. We welcome a man who doesn't just talk about the future, he creates it. Dr. José Fernández Calvo is a polymath. He's a global leader whose work spans across AI, corporate strategy, education, business, law. He led 500 Fortune initiatives. He pioneered AI-driven education platforms and advised organizations across multiple continents and industries. He speaks 6 languages. He orchestrates global conferences and has shaped the future of learning and technology in ways that only few can match.
My pleasure. I'm super happy to be here and very excited about the conversations. Yes.
So, Dr. Jose, you're leading the AI Center in Miami Dade College. Can you tell us a little bit about your work?
So the AI Center at Miami Dade College is part of the whole AI initiatives within Miami Dade College. We have degrees in bachelor degrees and associate degrees in applied AI. So Miami Dade College is a large institution. We have about 125,000 students and we're mostly undergraduate, and we don't go much into the research area. We have some research, but it's not the key area. And that's why we focused on applied AI. That is getting the people who come to Miami Dade College to understand how AI works in a practical way and how they can apply it in their work, not research and building new applications. Because we think that today that is what is most necessary. We have models, there are a lot of people doing research. What we need is more application of AI in business.
Wonderful. That's very exciting about what you're doing, and we are going to talk a little bit more about it. Okay, AI is evolving from being a tool for us to something more dynamic, an active collaborator in human learning and creation. So how far do you think this partnership is going to go? And what is the next stage of the human-AI relationships?
That's a very deep question. First of all, it's very difficult to see into the future, especially with technologies like these that are advancing so rapidly. So if you had something that advanced stably and slowly, it would be easier to predict. But this is advancing so fast in an exponential way that it makes it very difficult to predict where it's going because of the complexities of the effects that it has. This is a concept that Ray Kurzweil's book, The Singularity is Near, is it brings it up. It says that, there's a curve in the advance of technology. And once we get to that point in the curve where it's accelerating so fast up, it's virtually impossible to say what's on the other side of that, because we can't even imagine it today, those changes that are coming. So I'd say that it's always difficult to predict the future, but especially with something like AI that's advancing so fast and is so fundamental to everything we do, I think it's very difficult to make predictions.
Absolutely. I agree with you. And I think that really it's incredibly hard to predict. But for sure, we will be using technology more and more, and AI is becoming a part of our everyday life. I think from the time ChatGPT came out, we started using AI and we're aware of it, even if most of the people are aware of it and they are using everyday GPT or other LLM. But I see the future where we're going to use even more tools, and AI is going to become even more in our lives, and we're going to do everything with AI. It's going to be a need for this collaboration between humans and AI. So that was my idea. How do you see that collaboration?
I would like to start with an analogy to the 1970s. Like we mentioned before, like if you're a computer salesman in 1970 and you're talking to a person, you're trying to sell them a computer and you tell them, this computer can do everything. To the person that's buying it, they don't understand what it means. It can do everything. It can do nothing. It's not a clear point. But if you understand the person as a computer salesman and you say to that person, okay, you are a writer. You're writing books and you're using a typewriter. If you use a computer and you use a word processor program, then it's much easier to write because you can do edits and all the rest. If you understand that the person is an accountant and they're doing accounting and you show them a spreadsheet and say, look, this is much easier than using a calculator and a book and paper and pencil to keep the accounts of your company. So I think similar to that, today it's not a very good question to ask, like, what is AI good for? Because it's the same question of everything and nothing. I think we have to focus a bit more and focus on doing what. Do I want a tutor that will help teach my kids math at a level that I don't know? So I never learned, calculus or whatever, and I want my kids to learn it. So now I have an AI tutor that will help my kids with their homework and help them, learn better, even things that I don't know, but I can be there and understand how the tutor works and understand how it helps them work, how it gives them exercises, how it corrects the exercises. And I can supervise something even though I don't understand the maths that is being taught to the kids. So I think we have to find those uses where we really need it, and there it's going to apply. And the same way that computers now are everywhere and in everything are in a phone and they help us in everything, AI, I think, is going in the same direction. We're going to have AI for everything. We now use AI every day in, our Siri, or when we say, hey, Google or whatever, and we get answers from all of these systems. Those are already types of AI that are answering, right? We got used to playing, chess against a computer, and we don't think of that as AI anymore. But it's been here for many decades and it's been advancing, and now it made like a big leap forward and it's impressing us a lot. You have three types of AI that we can classify. It was one way of classifying AI: narrow AI, general AI, and super AI. Narrow AI is an AI that specifically does one thing well, like plays chess, or does one thing well. General AI is what we are very close to now with ChatGPT and the other large language models, in which it does almost everything that a human can do at a human level. So it can play chess, it can answer history questions, it can write poems, it can write music, it can make pictures. It can do all of these things almost at a human level, and better than some, because also there's not a specific line, right? Not all humans do math the same way, or not all humans are just as creative when they're writing a song, so we have different levels. And then the next level is artificial superintelligence, which is an intelligence that is superior to humans. So artificial general intelligence is just a point in a line of progress of AI. It is going inevitably towards artificial superintelligence. So AI is going to be smarter than us. And so the question there is, how do we deal with that? How do we manage that? How do we make it safe for our future?
Absolutely. And it seems like AI will be able to do so much, and we already have AI that is a master level, like a lawyer or a doctor. So for that perspective, I'm thinking, where do you think people are going to place our value as humans? Because as of now, we put a lot of value into our work. We study so many years to become a doctor. We study so many years to become a lawyer. We practice so long, and at certain point, we associate our value with our work. So in the future, when we have so much knowledge, and knowledge will be everywhere available to everybody, will our value shift away from knowledge towards empathy, adaptability, or something else entirely? What do you think?
I've always been driven by knowledge. I'm very curious. I want to know everything. And I think that it depends on our personalities. But I think one thing that has been, ever since classical, philosophy, the Greeks, to this end, we have always talked about a well-rounded life. Like, a person is not just what they do at work. A person is not just what they do with their family. So, a woman is more than a mother. They have to be a well-rounded person. And we want everybody in society to be more than one thing, to be a family member, to be a friend, to do creative work that benefits the community and the world. So we want to be well-rounded individuals that do a whole lot of things. So part of the answer to your question is, I think in some senses, we have been driven to emphasize work as one of the facets of our lives. And we should be more balanced in that. We shouldn't be workaholics that only do work, right? Because if you're dedicated all your life only to raising your children, when your children leave home, there's a huge hole in your life, right? Because you haven't done other things. But if during the raising of your kids, you did other things, you went out, you had friends, you did work, then that huge change in your life is more, palatable. The transition is a bit easier. I think with this is the work. The people who have been super focused only on work, if the work goes away, they're going to suffer more than others that haven't. So I think it goes back to the very classical idea of being well-rounded individuals that do a whole lot of things. And we can do research and we can do a whole lot of things even with super AI, because the fact that there is a super intelligence that asks the questions doesn't mean that there isn't an interaction that we can do with that intelligence in order to develop further as humans.
So you think if AI takes over all of our daily tasks, what do you think humans will be focused on?
Well, I mean, taking over a daily task is going to be a long process, because think of it, for example, right now, it's much easier to replace somebody that's sitting all day in front of a computer and working, because you just have to generate the software that does that work, than somebody that's doing manual work. So programming a robot to fix a pipe that is broken in a house is today much harder than replacing a lawyer, because, all the thinking part can be done much easier today than the manual part. Also, if you think of it, if we're going to build those robots, we need to build the factories, we need to sell them. So there's decades of time there until all that infrastructure is built and distributed and happens. So the process that you're describing of, work disappearing is not an immediate one. It's not going to happen in 1 year. It's not going to happen even if we surprisingly have ASI in a year or two. We're still going to have a lot of change that is going to happen. And lastly, some things that we think of as work, we are going to keep on doing. So, for example, educating children. In the process of educating children, we have several components. We have the component of giving them knowledge, which maybe, yes, the giving of the knowledge might be done by an AI or as a tutor or something like that. But there's a whole lot of, interaction between children, playing with adults, playing with other children. There's a lot of work that teachers do that is not just a syllabus. It's helping them grow as individuals. So I think there's a whole aspect of education that doesn't go away. And there's a whole aspect of education that professors in university and even in school, they love to do. And that maybe that's why they don't get paid that much, because they love what they do. Yeah. And I think that's not going to disappear. That's still going to be there. So maybe the role of the educator is a bit more of a coach than somebody that just stands in front of them, and throws knowledge at them. So the students are learning by themselves on the computer with the AI, interacting, doing exercises. But there's also the coach there that puts them in teams and makes them work together. And, it sets up a competition so they all can compete. Who knows more about geography? I don't know, whatever. But the motivational, human, networking, interaction part, we need it as humans. It's not going to disappear, in the short term at all, because we're still guided by our biology in that. So there's a whole lot of work that won't disappear. Artists, singers, people who make movies and entertainers, all of those things, even with the technology as it's advancing and making it easier to make movies and all that with AI, I think there still is a big role of humans for decades to come.
That's great news. And you spoke about education, and I want to talk a little bit about our youth. And I know, how many students do you have right now?
So MDC, Miami Dade College, has 125,000 students. The total number of AI students at MDC varies between 500 to 1,000, depending on the term. So we get a new batch in and another group leaves. But we're talking a very large number. And this is really good because it's building up the AI workforce here in Miami.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. And how do you see the traditional educational system that were designed for the industrial age and focused on memorizing, on uniformity? as we move into the AI dominated world, which fundamental changes you think our youth we should apply, and what do you use in your work?
So I think education has evolved over time, and if you look at old universities like Oxford and Cambridge, they have more of a tutorial system, old school. They have kept certain characteristics of older type of education, more Socratic method than as everybody sitting in a classroom listening to somebody repeat, which was more of, as you said, the industrialization of education that happened in the 19th century, whatever. And I think a lot of people have been resisting that. One of my favorite TED, Sir Ken Robinson, he talked about how schools kill creativity. And I think if it's not the most viewed TED Talk, it's close to that, because he touches a really important nerve there. It is what I was talking about before. There's all these human aspects of growing as a person that you have to do while you're growing up as a kid, and that the schools don't really focus on that much, or the standard industrial school. There have been movements like the Montessori and other movements in education that have put a bit more emphasis on the person and building a well-rounded person, not just filling them up with knowledge. So it's been there, and I think there's always been a resistance to that, and there's always people knowing, there are limits to this system. Now, with the power of AI and having really good AI tutors, I mean, the work that people are doing in Khan Academy is really good, and I super recommend it if you have kids in school to use it. There's a whole lot of things that the kids can do in Khan Academy. It's really good, but it allows you as a parent to supervise the work. It tells you how much work they did. It tells you the progress that they did, and you don't have to spend the hours or know the content in order to make sure that your kids are progressing. So it's a fantastic tool, and it's a window into what the future of education is going to look like. What we were talking before, with the faculty being more coaches and less, subject matter experts giving knowledge on a particular subject matter. And I think it's great if it gives us the opportunity to go to a more human-centric, well-rounded idea of education.
That's amazing. For sure, I think so. Using AI, it's going to be part of their young generations growing up, and it's going to be like there was Elon Musk said that everybody can have a little Einstein with them to help them with education, which sounds really amazing. And in a world where AI can handle repetitive tasks and even generate new ideas, how do we ensure that our children are developing critical skills like adaptability, curiosity, or emotional intelligence? Should there be the focus of our education now, since we have the knowledge available?
Yeah, I think, as I said before, we go back to being a well-rounded individual. I think the duty of parents is to help their kids be well-rounded and strong individuals that will make good decisions in the future by themselves. It's important to stick with that. The consequences of the tools that we are using are not always obvious. So let's go back, for example, to the example of social media. There is a lot of consequences of going from physical, personal contact and growing up with interaction with other kids in person to those interactions being mediated by a computer screen, a phone or a computer. One example that has come up is, for example, bullying. If you have two kids in person and bullying each other, and one of the kids is on the ground crying, there is a trigger mechanism that unless the kid's a psychopath, they will stop. Like, they will stop the bullying at some point because they realize the damage they've done to the other kid, and they don't want to go forward, or they consider that they won and they stop. The problem with a lot of the online bullying is they not really seeing the damage that they are doing to the other person with the bullying, and so they don't stop. And so there's a lot of mechanisms that exist in society and in human interactions between people, things that we do or we don't do, and we've evolved, a behavior that when you put it in an online context doesn't really apply or doesn't really work. And so we have these problems that are new problems that didn't exist before that we have to solve. And they're very, very difficult to predict because, and so there's a whole lot of problems that might arise about how we use AI and what AI is for. Like one example that people talk about is motivation. Like if we generate so much wealth that we don't have to work anymore and people don't work, what are the consequences of that? And there are really worrying consequences. For example, a lot of our capitalist democratic society is built on, free markets and the free markets working. The free markets in combination with rule of law, in combination with democracy, has been a really good thing for Western world, has really developed fantastically by combining those things. Now, if I don't no longer need to work, and how do I decide who I vote for? Do I vote for the person that's going to give me more money? We go towards qualified vote and only people that generate money and add to society get to vote. And then we go to sort of, aristocracy or oligarchy on the negative side of an aristocracy. So there's questions that are very fundamental in how we organize society that are going to be challenged by AI. And we need to be able to rise up and adapt our system to those new challenges of AI.
It's true. We have a lot of work into finding out how to deal with a lot of problems that are arising. And the other thing that I hear lately about students or the high school students is that they use AI in their work. When they have their homework, they use AI. So the teachers in school are asking, did you use AI to complete this work? So how can we differentiate and put some boundaries between when do we use AI for creativity and when do we use our own for development of the young students? And also, do you think that it's gonna, because AI knows everything, we can literally make it right, do all of our work. How do we keep being creative in this environment where we can have everything done for us?
So to split it up in a couple of things. First, AI is not perfect. It makes mistakes. And so we shouldn't consider it like an oracle that reveals the truth to us. We should consider it an assistant that is giving us information. It might or might not be right. So we have to use, to be sure that we check that the information is. So we are always responsible when we use the output of an AI, that we have to be responsible for how we use that information. And if we get wrong information from an AI and we use it wrongly, then it's our fault because it's like when we repeat misinformation that we got on the internet, right? You repeat something that's wrong, you're contributing to making, the world a worse place instead of a better place. As far as how to use it as a tool, again, an analogy to the 70s with the calculator. So when the calculators first off, they were banned in school. Nobody could use a calculator in school because teachers didn't know how to use it. Over time, we found ways on when it was useful to use a calculator. We know. So now you learn how to multiply the basic tables so that you know how to multiply. But then when you get to more complex calculations, then it's okay to use a calculator because it doesn't make sense, to expend all the effort in doing complex calculations when we can use a calculator. So we had to find a balance of this new tool and when to use it and when not to use it. The issue here is that most of the kids are using the AI more than the faculty members, than the teachers. So I think we have to trust our teachers that they have, many years of experience in teaching the children how to learn. They're experts on learning and on how to learn. And maybe they're not experts on using AI, but they know how to learn. So I think we have to help them adapt to this new massive change to education that is coming and that all of the teachers and faculty members in colleges and everybody has to adapt to. And it's going to take some time until we get it right. So the initial instinct in a lot of, teachers is to ban it. No, you can't use it because, and now we have to find a way. So an example that I saw is, a creative writing person. They had to write an essay. So you can ask it to write an essay. And this teacher had an idea and said, okay, I want you to use ChatGPT to write an essay, but then I want you to look at the output of the essay and I want you to give it back and tell it to make changes to make it a better essay. So I want you to do like 2 or 3 times, improve the essay with feedback. And so if we do that, then it's interesting because the kids have to understand what's the difference between a good and a bad essay in order to give the prompting to AI in order to write a better essay. So that teacher was using AI in a way that I think was really good because it doesn't deny the tool that the kids are going to use, because in the future they're all going to use AI. If they have to write a letter in a job or something, they're going to use AI. So it's good that they know how to use it, but it's also good that they understand the difference between a good and a bad essay and how to distinguish it and how to make AI write a better essay. So I think you can still use the tools in a class constructively. It's just that it's a hard learning process that everybody has to go through to understand how to use the new tools constructively.
I have a question.
Yes.
Dr. Jose or Dr.
Or just call me Jose.
Jose. Okay.
Easier.
So I want to know more about what you're doing in Miami Dade College and tell us more about what students can do there and what kind of education they're receiving, about the future technology and what kind of tools they get equipped with for the future and how is the program working.
Yeah, so program has been very successful. When it started out a couple of years ago, the idea was to have maybe 60, 100 students, and we're talking about 500 new students per term. Like really, it exploded. There is a need. There's also the great thing, which is the subsidy, the grants that we get from Miami-Dade County. So everybody that lives in Miami-Dade gets free courses of AI. More or less, the first year is free if you live in Miami-Dade County. So a lot of people come in, and we have certificates. So the first step would be a 9-credit AI awareness certificate. So you do 3 subjects that they give you a little degree certificate that says that you know what AI is. It's the basics of AI. Then if you do another 3 courses of about 9 credits total, the second one is AI practitioner. So you know how to build AI. So that is a bit less than the first year of the associate's degree. If you do 2 years, then you get an associate degree in applied AI. And if you do the full 4 years, you get the bachelor's degree in applied AI. Now, as I said before, we are focusing on applied AI, on how to use it. So, for example, there's one of the courses with AI apps in which the students build an application for a company or for an organization. So, for example, last term, the group of students built a whole AI application that helped the Boy Scouts with their marketing and helped integrate the CRM marketing tools. They did a really great AI application that the Boy Scouts are now using, And I think we can contribute to nonprofits and to for-profits. So another team, they built a pricing agent for a maritime transport company that had to spend about a couple of hours, 2-3 hours every time they had to give a quote to a client that asked 2 containers from China to, the US or whatever. And they had to add prices and costs and look at a whole lot of tables and gather data from a whole lot of things and then write a proposal email. So what this team of students, they automated all that process. And so the output was the draft email that the pricing agent got that said, okay, the suggested sailing is, this ship, the Maersk, I don't know what, is selling in the best these dates. The cost per container, you need 3 20-footers. So it's how many, dollars per container plus all extra costs that were added in. And then they wrote in the email all the terms and conditions that would normally apply. So this would make it easier for the company to make this, pricing and it saves money. And if this is implemented correctly, like in this type of a project, then you can have something that took 2 hours cut down to 15 minutes. So if an employee had to do 3 or 4 in a day, maybe they would answer like the next day when they got a quote. Now they're answering, within the hour.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is really good for the business.
Amazing. And you said that 95% of students are graduating
without student debt. That is a thing that is across all of Miami Dade College. So last term, 95% of the students who graduate without student debt. And that is a really good thing, especially in the US with its, a big deal. MDC, it's called Democracy's College because it tries to raise people and give them, training and degrees that help them find jobs and go into society and progress. So it's a really valuable institution for the city and for the country. It's one of the leading, colleges in the country in that sense.
That's amazing. All of that without the weight of the debt.
Yes.
That it's so early on, it's such a big burden for the young people.
Yes, it makes a huge difference.
And another thing that truly fascinates me is your upcoming book, The Memes and Genes. It's a concept that ties together evolution, culture, and the way ideas spread. When do you think the book will come out?
I don't know. I'm hoping towards the end of this year, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. So in the book, you talk about virality and you talk about the ideas. And in a world where virality spreads ideas faster than ever, do you think the ability to create viral concepts will become more important than having deeply grounded expertise?
Yes. So to go back to explain the basic of the book so
Yeah.
the viewers can understand. So
Yeah.
there is the concept of the meme that we talk about, memes like a joke, something that expands. And this word was invented by Richard Dawkins in his book, The Selfish Gene. It's from 1976. And he tried to explain how evolution works on different levels. So the evolutionary processes can happen at the level of the individual, of the species, or of the animal. This is a debate in biology at what level it happens. But the interesting thing is that his point is that it's actually happening at the level of the gene. And so the genes are competing with each other to reproduce themselves, and they are building bigger and bigger machines in order to reproduce themselves. And that's how we evolved animals and plants and all of the life on the planet. So the idea is that a group of memes working together and are similar to a group of genes working together. Genes working together make a genome that make an animal or a plant. And there's like the gene for the eyes, the genes for the hair. I'm going very, very grossly over it, but just to make it a point. So you've got these little items that put together make an animal or a plant, right? And what Dawkins says is that is a replicator, something that replicates. And he says there's not only the idea of the biological replicator, which is the gene, but there are other replicators. And he proposes the idea of the meme, which is similar to the gene, and that's why he used that word. And it works by reproducing itself. And that's, why you pick up on ideas, and the word meme is a good one. Like, it became a meme, the word meme. Everybody used it. And when you put a lot of ideas together, they also make more complex animals. So this was Susan Blackmore that wrote about the memeplex, right? I can do an analogy between, let's say, a dog and a car. Like there's a genome to make a dog with the legs and the liver and the skin and all that. And there's a car, which is the idea of the wheel, the idea of the engine, the idea of the seats, the idea of the glass, all of these ideas put together. And then there is a competition for evolution that happens, just like in the genetic world, that they create these animals and they compete. In the ideas world, we have created these ideas, and these ideas have helped us compete with other animals. So the reason why we have evolved over other animals and dominated the world is that we have all of these ideas and all of this knowledge or culture that we pass on to each other. And we also develop like big chunks of our brain to hold and process those ideas. So that's why our brain consumes so much energy. That's why we develop like the frontal cortex. All of this is in the service of harnessing and processing those ideas that helps us compete with other animals. And the key thing that we have there is adaptability. With our brain and with our ideas, we manage to adapt to cold climates, to warm climates, to cook the food, to do all of things that help our evolutionary success. And the basic idea had to be transmitted one-on-one. And so the language is a memeplex, right? It's a whole lot of little ideas that work together and we can communicate. And then it evolved into a whole lot of different languages. And then we learned how to write down those languages. So now, even if a whole village disappeared, the ideas that they had written down might be passed on to another generation. So the ideas not only lived in the brain, but now they lived on the tablets or on the books. And when the printing press came along, then we had a huge storage that ideas could live outside of the human brain and keep, existing in time, even if they were not in anybody's brain. They could exist, they could be stored outside of us. And then came computers, and it was like another big chunk. Now we can distribute them and hold an immense amount of information. And right now what's happened is that we are competing. Ideas are dominating the genes. Before, the memes were subject to the genes. They lived within the brain and they needed a physical brain to be housed. Now we are becoming dependent on the memes. So our idea of what is beautiful is guiding our bodies. Mm-hmm. The idea of medicine is changing the natural selection process, because people that would have died now live and they have kids. And so natural selection in the old style is being changed by culture and ideas. Then we are now facing AI, which is another massive change. And the issue is that up to now, only humans had new ideas.
Yes.
And now suddenly we're getting to the point that AI is going to have new ideas. And so the problem that I see that we need to face with this is the selection for ideas is virality. It's not truth. It's not whether it's good or bad for us as humans. It's not whether it's good or bad for the future of humanity. It's just viral. The most viral idea wins.
Yes.
Because it's fighting for storage in our brain and to use little bits of our brain, and compete like that. So a funny joke that goes across the internet is suddenly, rearranging the neurons in all of our brains, because it does that physically, right? Anything that gets written into our drives up here, those are using space. And it's the virality of ideas that is reigning, not whether they're good or bad for us in the future, right? So I think we have to be conscious of that. We have to understand those processes, which we don't right now.
Yes.
And we need to understand how to control them in order to guide the evolution of those ideas to a future that is, good for us. Mm-hmm. Because if not, I don't think we're going to end the world, by, Terminator-style robots killing us. I don't think that's that. I think there are other much more probable outcomes, like in science fiction. Somebody invents a game that it's so addictive that people prefer to die than to stop playing.
That's very... Because
it hijacks any part of our brain that is, we are ready to die for an idea. We're ready to die for our family. We don't put life above everything. There are things that are above our life.
Yeah.
And if a game managed to hijack that and put itself above that, then there's this science fiction story that we would be, willing to die in order to keep playing the game. So I think there are a lot of issues there that we need to be working on and understanding how they impact us and how they are evolving in order to have a better future for our kids, especially.
And I don't know if you heard about this story, but there was an AI agent on Twitter that was created by a person. The name was Truth Terminal, and he was supposed to start a business. And he's posting also on Twitter. And he raised money from a very big investor, Horowitz, and he gave him $50,000 in Bitcoin. He sent it to his wallet, to the AI agent's wallet. So the AI agent was hiring people to do a marketing or advertising activities for him because he's online. He doesn't have a body. And I think it became a $1 million business because he launched a meme coin and people were so interested. So he became super viral. So in this way, AI becomes capable of engineering virality. It's already happening. Creating ideas, stories, or trends. How is this going to impact the cultural evolution?
I wish I knew. That's one of the very difficult things to predict. But one thing I want to say about that is there's this idea of anthropomorphize, right? To make, human something that is not human. So we anthropomorphize our pets, like our animals, even our, a car, or we have the robo dog at the AI center, right? And a lot of people, treat it like a dog, and they interact with it as if it was a dog, and it's not. It's a robot, right? And it has different processes, and it does. And so I think a lot of times I do it too. So I say please and thank you sometimes to when I'm working with ChatGPT or other large language model like that. And that's just because I'm used to, be polite and it comes out. But that's me treating the AI as if it was a person, which is not, right? It's like saying thank you to a calculator in a sense. So we have to not make that mistake. We have to understand what it is, the tool, and what it does and what it doesn't do, and not give it properties that it doesn't have, because then we're making a mistake. We're thinking that it has certain properties and it doesn't. You've also seen, examples of AI agents that have been put out there that have become rude or aggressive, or they've done other things. And this is just a reaction to how they are trained, and they are trained by giving them rewards. So if we reward virality, then the agent will do anything to get virality. And he said, hey, this works. And unfortunately, that's the same thing that's happened with media, right? No, if it bleeds, it leads, they said like 100 years ago in the news industry. It's about virality. It's about getting eyeballs on your media. And so that is unfortunately having consequences, that people only see bad news because bad news is what scares us, and that is gets our attention. Good news does not get our attention as much as bad news.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being our guest today. That was an incredible conversation. I'm extremely grateful that we had this conversation and that we can empower and give more knowledge to the people for the future with AI, which is inevitable. I appreciate so much for you coming to this episode.
My pleasure. It's been a very, very interesting conversation. I loved it, and thank you for having me.